shaking his Happy St. Patrick's Day. Welcome to the regularly scheduled public meeting of March 17, 2025 of the Township Council of the Township of Washington. Adequate notice of this meeting was given in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act by the Township Clerk to at least 2 newspapers in December, and this meeting has been posted on the Township Bulletin Board, electronic message board, WCTV, and on the Township website. Please notify the municipal clerk for any disability requirements necessary for attendance at Township Council meetings. The fire exits are located through the double doors to your right and through the door on your left. Please silence all cell phones. If you are unable to attend the council meeting in person and would like a topic to be addressed at a council meeting, please send an email to the Township of Washington - contact all council members at once, twp@washington.us. Could everyone please stand for a salute to the flag? I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Councilman Casio.
Here.
Councilman Sears.
Here.
Councilman Oman.
Here.
Councilwoman Velez.
Here.
Council President DeSena.
Here. Let the record reflect also in attendance Township Administrator Mark DiCarlo, Township Attorney Siobhan Bailey, CMFO John Corcoran via Zoom, and Township Clerk Susan Witkowski. Payment of bills. Resolution number 25-189. Authorized payment of bills February 27, 2025 to March 13, 2025. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? We good? Roll call.
Councilman Casio.
Yes.
Councilman Sears.
Yes.
Councilman Oman.
Yes.
Councilwoman Velez.
Yes.
Council President DeSena.
Yes. Public service announcement for March 17, 2025. The primary election date has changed. Please note the primary election will now be held Tuesday, June 10th. All voting takes place at Town Hall. Hours are 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. The VFW Post 6192 of District 2 in New Jersey is holding a day to honor commemoration ceremony on National Vietnam War Veterans Day, Saturday, March 29, 2025, 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. at the Bethany Community Center, 605 Pascack Road. Please visit the website for further details. The 2025 animal licenses are now due. The late fee is $25. Animal Control will begin issuing summonses the week of April 7th to those that have not registered their pets. Township of Washington DPW is currently seeking 1 or 2 part-time seasonal workers for up to 29 hours per week. A valid driver's license is required. Applicants must be 18 years or older. Please visit the website for further details. The Township of Washington will be hosting its 3rd annual family-friendly Spring into Wellness 5K Run Walk Health Fair on Saturday, May 3rd. Registration is now open. Please visit the website for more details. The Kiwanis Club of Pascack Valley meets on the 2nd Wednesday of each month at 6:30 p.m. at the Westwood Community Center. If anyone would like more information, please contact Paul Ralph Cardulli at 516-581-8319 or pascackvalleykiwanis@gmail.com. Our next special council meeting will be held on Monday, March 24, 2025. Thank you, everyone. At this time, we will have a presentation for the Finance Presentation 2025, barring Mr. DiCarlo.
Yes, good evening, everyone. Thank you, Council President. And Council President, if it's okay, I'd like to invite our professionals up to the table.
If you'd like to join us.
Just to set this up, we have Joe Colagero from Acacia. We have Josh Nikita from Acacia, Mr. Beinfeld, and Paige Fisher from Lurch, Fincy, and Bliss. And remotely, we have Michelle to accompany Mr. Beinfeld as well. You have the presentation in front of you. Before I just want to give you a quick explanation of it, because obviously they're going to go over the presentation. Ricky also has the slides to put up on the television if it was working. But I'm truly appreciative not only have these professionals to work with us in the township, but as thankful that they came up this evening as well. Some of them came from either New York or South Jersey, so we appreciate it. Just to point out to the council, as they go through their presentation, the first page of the presentation has our current debt, our outstanding debt, and our amortization for that, as well as the schedule of unfunded ordinances. On the second page on the top, last thing I just want to point out is under that first bar, proposed plan of finance to the left. The number that they're using for the presentation is based on the proposed 2025 capital. I explained to them that the capital has not been approved or denied yet. We haven't got there. So those numbers include what was proposed to council from the mayor and myself. If you slide over to the right, the expected available grant funding, that's taken into account both grants we're anticipating receiving, with timing and things in the government. Hopefully, we would receive those grants either this year or within 2026. And with that, I turn it over to you. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you, Mr. Carl. Mr. Weinfeld, good evening, everyone.
Sure. Good evening, Council President. I will, it's good to be here. I'll immediately defer to the folks who
Thanks.
put together the numbers.
Great.
Josh Page shows, and obviously to answer any
Great. Well,
questions.
So we're going to Joe, Mr. Collazo.
Yep, I'll jump in. Yeah, I'll jump in. This is Josh Nikita with the
Oh,
Acacia
okay,
Financial
I got
Group.
you backwards. All right.
Yeah,
sorry.
that's fine. Joe's my colleague, and he's the one that did all the hard work putting the numbers together.
All
So
right.
if there's any detailed questions, he'll happy to jump in. Mark, thanks for a great summary of the presentation. Really what we want to do is highlight on the first page your existing debt situation, because whenever you're considering a borrowing, the first thing we want to look at is what is the existing debt of the township, what might the impact be of the new borrowing on that existing debt. So that will really help inform any decision that we make. So it's really important to get a firm understanding.
Okay.
Your debt profile is relatively straightforward. Fixed rate, long-term debt. You have two bond issues outstanding. The 2019 bond issue has a final maturity in 2029. That's shown on the right-hand side of the page. In the middle is the most recent bond issue that you did in 2022. Relatively long-term bond issue going out to 2042, 20-year issue, level debt service. And on the far right is the combined debt service. And what we really want to focus on is that far right column, the annual debt service. That's your total annual debt service due that you have to budget for in each year, right? So what we look at is what is that pattern? And that, again, will help inform the decisions that we make. Do we go long-term bonds this year with the financing? Do we go short-term notes for a couple of years and then go long-term bonds? All of that is impacted by your existing debt service schedule. And here you can see the biggest thing that jumps out at you, the observation is in 2029 to 2030, you have a pretty large drop-off, 1.6 million down to about just under $1 million. So very favorable overall debt structure. What you want to see is a declining debt service pattern. That's what we advise clients to have. So you always have the ability to do future capital as you need improvements to the town, roads, sewers, improvements to buildings, and so forth. At the bottom of the page is a summary of your existing unfunded ordinances. This is effectively authorizations that have already been approved, but not yet borrowed against. Money has been spent against some or a good portion of it, I believe, but has not been borrowed. So the decision that we've been tasked with helping analyze and advise is what's the best way to approach borrowing for the funds that have already been authorized by the Township Council. So going on to the next page, that's 7.6 million there, almost 7.7. As Mark pointed out, at the top part of the page under that first bar, this is scenario. We did two scenarios. This is scenario one. Scenario two is very similar, just with some added additional capital for future years, which is very forward-looking and just projections at this point, but we wanted to give you an idea of what some additional borrowing for capital needs might look like.
So the 18 million is scenario two.
The 18, that is correct, that is scenario two. So what we're looking at here is about 10.1 million in new capital. We call it new. Of course, the 7.7 is approximately has already been approved, and at about 2.4 million in additional proposed authorization for new capital for 2025 capital program. And then to the right, Mark mentioned there's expected grants coming. The timing of those is a little bit unknown, which lends itself to going with short-term debt because you don't know when you're going to receive those grants. You want to have the flexibility to pay down your debt. When you go with long-term fixed-rate bonds, you can't always pay it off immediately. They're not always callable right away. Typically, fixed-rate debt long-term has a 10-year par call in municipal finance. So unlike a mortgage, you can't just pay it down right away. It's inefficient to do that. So if there's expected grants or other monies available that you might be thinking about in the next couple of years or even later in the year, it's advisable to stay short-term.
Yeah, just to add to that really quick, that 1.1 million you see in grants for purposes of this analysis, it's assumed that you guys get that in 2026. Not
Right.
this year, next year.
Yeah, and that's an assumption for now. It could come in later this year, it could come in the 27, it could come in the 28.
Yep.
We don't know right now, but we have that flexibility. So those are two key factors, the existing debt service pattern and the fact that you have grant monies available. So do you have a question?
Yes, is the 1.1 baked into the 10.1? Is it included in that?
We will be paying down, we'll be using that 1.1 to pay down a portion of the 10 million.
Yep.
Correct.
It's not accounted for.
But we didn't reduce that amount yet. The 10 million is the full amount that's needed.
It's grossed up.
It's a gross number.
It's gross.
Gross, exactly. Yep. Yep, that's exactly right. So two factors that we're looking at is you have a debt service pattern that tells you it may make sense to wait a little bit before we go long-term until the debt drops off. And you have grant monies that are going to coming in. You want to be able to pay off the debt sooner rather than later. So those two things tell us, let's look at short-term financing. So that's the scenario that we model here. Multi-phase, 2025, we issued the full 10.1 million because we don't have the grant money yet. That's what you need to fund the 7.6 existing plus the 2.4 new. It's a 1-year note, bond anticipation note. We sell it on a competitive basis. We'd get a rate of about, 3.35% ballpark in this market.
Probably a little conservative, but.
Yep. So with the note issuance, you don't have to pay principal down until the 3rd anniversary. So it's an interest-only obligation. In 2026, we would then assume that the grant would be available. We'd pay down the 1.15 million and issue the remaining balance of 8.9 million. That would then roll over again into 2027. We would roll it over to 2028. At that point, we'd have a required mandatory pay down. That's under New Jersey local bond law. After the 3rd anniversary, you have to start paying principal down. So in 28, you'll have both the principal and interest payment due. What's
the magnitude of that? Like, what would be the magnitude of that?
$250,000 is the
So it's
is the
very
amount
low.
that's due. Relatively low.
Very low.
Yeah, not a huge number. So it's manageable within the budget. And again, another reason why it helps reduce that debt service impact. So that's factored in here as well. And then finally, in 2029, we'd go out with long-term bonds to permanently finance. So you issue the bonds in 2029, the first principal payment would not be due until 2030 when your drop-off occurs, therefore reducing the impact. And the point is that that final column on the far right, we want to keep that as smooth as possible and not have increases in those years while your debt service is high until 2030. And this is the best way to do that under the existing circumstances based on your prior outstanding bonds as well as the proposed amount that you want to borrow for. So that's
So in 2030, we'd basically jump back up to the 2025 annual debt service plus like $10,000.
Yeah, yep.
14,000.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. Now this is based on current market rates. I think we're assuming about a 3.8%,
Yep.
3.85% market rate. That'll be determined by competitive sale based on the market conditions at that time. We think it's a reasonable estimate, and I think Joe was pretty conservative in the numbers. But that's really, even if rates come in at 4.5%, that's really not going to move the needle much on these results. It's not the interest cost. It's the amortization of the principal that's going to have the biggest impact. So I'm not too concerned about interest rate risk by staying short term for a period of time and then going long term, because that is one of the risks of doing short term debt. But it's a very common tool, as Bob can say, a lot of his clients and Paige as well. Most of our clients will generally issue short term debt for a period of time. You roll it over for several years, then you go long term. So it's a very common practice in New Jersey.
Well, we live in Township. We know all about it.
You know all about it, right?
It's our motto.
So that's scenario one. And again, scenario two is exactly the same thing with the addition of 2 more years of capital. 2026 and 2027, we ballparked based
Mark,
on
could you explain what we had encumbered in those big numbers in 2026?
That's just the proposed capital that you got in your 3-year capital plan. That's all. Just takes into account those numbers.
Just straightforward, no.
Straightforward. So what you got in your binder
Yeah,
book
exactly. That's
is
it.
exactly, yes. in
Okay,
27
that's why I just wanted to make sure.
And 27.
Thank you.
Yep. So it could be more, could be less. whatever council votes on, but this is just an assumption for this purpose. So you can see what that impact looks like. And obviously you're going to have higher debt service. And again, this is assuming the same timeline that would all be permanently financed in 2029. Of course, it's very, one thing we might want to consider is you go long-term bonds with the 8.9 million, but we stay short-term with the new capital in 26 and 27. You could do notes and bonds at the same time and have a portion of it remain short-term to manage your debt service impact. And that's something we'd advise you on as we got closer to that sale date.
So the scenario 2, I'm sorry. My apologies, I'm just.
Those big numbers we get.
So you're laying on the proposed capital, we would issue bans in 26 and 27 for those?
Correct. We would add it to the existing ban and continue to roll it over. So you can see that in the kind of center bar, that's the really dark color, the dark gray. You can see it goes from 10.1 million to 14.6 to 16.8. That's the additional of that other capital.
And just one other question. In scenario 1, in year 2028, there's interest due of $299 or $300K. But we also are showing the $250. What does the $250 represent there?
That's the principal pay down that I was speaking of, right? So that's under the minimum required principal pay down pursuant to local bond law.
The law allows you for 3 years not to pay anything down, but then kind of like a credit card, after you get the 3 years, there's a minimum requirement the law makes you pay.
And none of these are included, in neither scenario's got the 1.15 million coming back to us.
No, it does have it coming back to you.
It happens, you can see it in scenario 1, it happens between 2025 and 2026. You see in 2025, you issue 10.1 billion in bans, and 2026, you issue 8.9 million. So that's the effect of receiving that 1.1 million in 2026 and using it to pay down the bill.
Oh, I see it now.
Yeah, it's immediately reduced.
Yep.
Correct. Yep.
But you're only saving $39,000 now.
Yeah.
It's expensive money.
Yeah, it's not that's not the interest, right? It's the principal. That's really, yeah.
Short term versus long term.
Yeah.
You see it more long term.
That $250,000 that's required, that's a statute,
Correct.
okay?
Yep.
And can you, if you had to, could you accelerate that for more?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's the
You could always
minimum.
pay. You could always pay
Okay.
more.
Just checking.
Sure.
With
Yep.
no
It's done
penalties.
by,
No penalties.
Not on the notes. Not on the notes.
So only the bonds. That's
Correct.
why we got to get rid of it through the notes,
Correct. Yep.
where you're getting your least bang for the buck.
Right. But it helps you in the long term because that's less you have to amortize.
I know,
So
but
it does
still,
benefit you.
but you're only amortizing,
Yeah.
you're only saving 40K. So
Yeah.
it's not,
In interest, right.
yeah, you're not saving, $1.1 million.
Right.
Forward.
Yeah.
Josh, is there any other short-term borrowing options for the township other than the ban that you would recommend?
No, not really. This is it's the most optimal solution that
You
you
don't
have.
have any bans
Yep.
outstanding, so it's.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very, very efficient. We have a robust ban market in New Jersey, a lot of interest based on the
So
credit.
when would we go out for ban? In June like we did last time, Mr. Feinfeld?
sure, whenever, these, if whatever folks think is a good time, I don't think, whether it be June, July, whenever you can get it ready, whenever you need the money, basically, whenever you got to get that money in. But that'd be good, but you'd want to think about also the timing, because we have a brand new ordinance. I think we introduced a bond ordinance this year, yes? And
For the
we
DPW
may do
building.
another capital ordinance this year, I'm not sure.
Yes,
So
depending on what the.
you'd want to think about, whether we can fit that in or not. But then again, if you want to keep the note down the size down a little bit, and you don't need all the money from that next ordinance, maybe you keep that ordinance and not borrow it till next year.
So next year.
Yeah, but I think the summer sounds about right, and there are some rules out there for when you have to get money in to cover your expenses, IRS rules. So I think we're kind of at about the time where if we've spent some money, we want to reimburse our coffers, from a financial perspective and also from an IRS perspective.
What's the overhead cost of issuing bans? So if we were to issue ban, you have a 10.1 ban in 2025. If we issue less, is there less of a cost? Or is it?
Not when you get to the
Not
size.
meaningful?
It's not meaningful at that size because the fees, they're relatively small, so they're basically flat fees for all the services.
Mr. Beinfeld, would you have a strategy for us? So in the capital we're proposing for 25
Yes.
is 2 garbage trucks at $600,000. And so for the sake of the discussion, let's assume council authorizes $600,000. The bond ordinance authorizes the appropriation and encumbrance of that money.
Yes.
But if the garbage truck's not anticipated to come in for 2 to 3 years, strategically, when would you actually borrow that money?
I would strategically, I think you probably should borrow per, various borrowing guidelines. Again, going back to IRS rules, you want to borrow, kind of temporally to when you're expecting to spend the funds. So if it's 2 or 3 years out, I wouldn't, that's a little bit early. If it's stuff that's coming up in the next year before your rollover of the ban next year, you may want to consider getting all the money you might want to spend in the next year. But if it's further out, you can't, as we talked about a little bit, you might think, well, maybe we can borrow it and we can invest it, right? Maybe we can make more than we're borrowing, but we're not allowed to do, we're not allowed to make an arbitrage play with our funds. So, that's what but you should, on the confluence of that, contrary to that, if you have funds that you are going to expect to expend in the next year, if you're not going to use them for 10 months, you can earn money now to carry your borrowing costs for those 10 months. But you might be getting in your bank now I don't know what you're getting as a bank rate, but you might be covering your.
But we could also pay for them when we get the grants back.
Yeah.
And not just, get 40 grand out of $1,150,000. You could pay off the garbage trucks with that.
Yeah, I mean, that's a council decision.
Yeah.
But generally, if you're not going to spend for a couple of years out, I wouldn't.
Yeah.
At this point.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else, ladies and gentlemen?
So basically, the strategy is to go short term if the rates change, right? Because they might change. You wouldn't want to go long term right away because you're stuck with that rate, basically. The market right now is volatile, to say the least.
Agree with that.
So
Yep.
I wish that wasn't the case, but that's been the case for a number of years. So this is a strategy that most municipalities use.
Yeah, and I would say it's not even because of where rates are, because rates are still okay long
Right,
term. They're
right,
not too bad. It's really your pattern.
The fact that it's there. And that's a pattern we've had for the last 20 years.
Yeah, which is
Okay.
great, which is really what you want, right? You're in a great position.
Okay, educate me on a pattern that would be bad. Even though we don't have it, what would be a bad pattern?
Upward sloping would be the worst. So meaning your debt service just keeps
Just goes
climbing.
Okay.
Right, that would be a sign that somebody's been borrowing too much money and pushing it off long.
Right.
And you're limited on what you can do, but if you keep borrowing and layering it on, eventually it's going to grow. So even a totally flat going out 15, 20 years doesn't give you room because every time you do a new borrowing on top of that, it's going to increase it.
Right.
So you want that declining pattern continuously. Absolutely.
And you look, 2049, I'll probably be dead, but Well, let's be honest. I don't want to go for 100, but I don't think they'll make it. When you look at the end number, right? You're talking huge dollars.
Yep.
And I think that's what scares a lot of people when they look at it. Yeah, it's a huge bunch of money. So I'm glad we're on that trajectory that we're on. So.
Right, and listen, the reason, and Bob and I were talking about this before with Mark, that, the federal government, we'll say bestows upon state and local governments the tax exemption, which is, a very important and, powerful tool to be able to borrow at such a low cost versus what taxable rates would be. It's probably a point or more, right, relative to the taxable equivalent. In the grand scheme of things, on a particular deal, it may not have a huge impact, but when you start seeing it cumulatively over 5, 10, 15 years of capital programs, it's going to have a huge impact. And the ability to borrow long-term is a huge advantage because you can afford these projects and spread that cost over the useful life and everybody who's enjoying it
And
over that period.
from what I understand, if the rates do get better, can we cancel the existing bans and refinance it, or you're stuck with that?
You're stuck with that until 1 year maturity. It's just 1 year.
1 year.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And we could qualify for any additional monies that come in.
I mean, if you were fortunate to get additional monies,
Right.
that you could pay
Yes,
down.
that.
Correct,
That would be
absolutely.
the benefit
Yeah.
of keeping it the band.
Right.
It's usually what Josh is saying, that amortizing and starting to go permanent right now is really going to bump up your aggregate debt service payable, as opposed, you
Right.
have to start amortizing whatever it is. How much is it a year? $400 a year, or whatever it might be, which is way more than 1% on an interest rate would cost you. So it's usually that drives most towns. It's trying to levelize and not go up, certainly, not have too big a bump immediately.
Okay. Thank you.
Is that right?
Is scenario 2 a recommendation, or are you just laying out the numbers so we could see them? I mean, are you recommending either of these scenarios, or are they really, are they mutually exclusive, or, can you?
They're mutually exclusive. These are illustrations based on the facts given to us, or based on assumptions given to us from Mark and the officials of the town, right? You're telling us, here's what we have. We know we have the existing authorization. We think the budget for 2025 is going to be about 2.4. So we ran those scenarios. Likewise for scenario 2, Mark told us, here's what we think the budget for capital is going to be in 26 and 27. So we just modeled that. Not a recommendation, just a facts. Here's what the numbers would be.
Is it right, Josh, that if I'm thinking about it, the big difference between scenario 1 and scenario 2 is kind of the decision which is almost impossible to make now, which is whether or not, when permanent bonding happens in 29 or whenever it might be, whether or not to go for the whole caboodle, rolling in the 26, 27, and 28, or whether to just do what we're kind of our notes now and then keep some notes out there. And I think the township actually did that as part of what we're doing now. I think there was a choice some years ago that putting everything in at once might be just too much. And that's why we have some notes now. And of course, that's grown over the years as you have capital budgets, but there's been similar. And you can't, it's tough to know that.
And that's exactly what I said when I kind of gave a quick summary of that. Like, this is just one scenario of what you would do for scenario 2. You may want to keep some of the notes, some of that note short term when we go long term in 29, right? You're definitely going to want to take out the majority of it because you have those required pay downs. On the new capital, you won't have required pay downs yet, so you can continue to roll them at interest.
That's what we did last time we did the
Yes,
firehouse.
right. And that will be an interesting choice, which is impossible to know at 2 or 3 years down the road, whether to throw it all in and what the impact would be, what the rates are, or if it would be too much for the first 2 or 3, 4 years, and whether to do some notes to ease that.
There'll be your budget situation, market conditions, the actual capital program, other grant monies that you may be getting. There's all those things will factor into it, and we would advise you at that time. So and we could model out a lot of different scenarios for sure. And we would continue to do that, as leading up to it. Every year we renew, kind of take a fresh look at this. We kind of keep this as a living model, right? Updated each year as you're doing your bands. All right, where do we stand? Do we still think this plan makes sense? And make the recommendations on a year-to-year basis. But it's good to have this planning tool. The rating agencies like to see that. They want to see you're forward-looking and anticipating. At least I know you're doing that with your regular budget, but sort of in terms of the capital budget and sort of future debt service, it's good to have this longer-term model rather than just like, all right, this year what are we going to do? Gives you an idea going forward.
What type of volatility, percentage-wise, would we want to see, or would you recommend for total debt service? So, we go from 1.7, so scenario 2, 1.7, we go up 300K, we go up 1, 1 and change, then we go up another 3. Is that too much volatility, or is
You mean in terms of the
300,000
debt service pattern?
the total debt service?
Total
pattern?
debt service. So you'd like to see it declining as much as possible.
Sure.
The problem with that, the limitation we have is on the amortization of the bonds. State requires us to amortize a certain amount of principal every year. So I'm limited on how I can structure my bond issue. So generally speaking, we're doing level debt service. My first payment, the $258,000, can't be more than scenario 2. And either way,
You can't double it.
you can't double it, right? It's called like the 2-over-1 rule. The largest payment can't be twice as much as the smallest payment. So if you look, that first payment, we're kind of getting it down as close as possible, as small as possible, to keep the debt service impact low. I couldn't get any lower. If I could, I may even go a little bit lower just to keep that impact down in those early years. But state law requires us to make a minimum amortization amount on the bond issue as well. So that affects how we. Otherwise, I would probably do some things a little different than what we're presenting here.
And that's a state law that governs all towns, and it's probably there to stop the pushing away, the backloading of the debt service. So it's requiring certain minimum all the way through.
No, I mean, I agree. I would prefer to not borrow at all, but I don't think that's realistic. But, again, when I look at 27 to 28 and see plus 300K,
That's a lot.
is that a lot compared to, the period before where it goes up 140K?
I mean, I would say no, but it's all relative. It's easy for me to say. It's not, my tax rate, right? But at the same time, there's really no choice. If you're going to incur that debt, that's the best we can do in terms of minimizing the impact.
Okay.
I've certainly seen larger impacts than that. I mean, the good news is it's a short-term effect, right? It's like 1 year, 2 years.
Yes.
What you don't want to see is the continuation of that going forward, which becomes much more difficult to challenge. Here, you can handle that through different means, maybe other than tax rate. There's other ways to handle that to get through it, using surplus monies or other funds that you may have to get through the budget year.
Okay.
And if we in fact don't borrow for some of those out year expenses now for 2 or 3 years down the road, then if we don't borrow in 25, we can clip off immediately part of that minimum 250 pay down in 2028, because that's 250 on an assumed amount in 2025. So if we are able to hold some of our 25s and push it to next year, we won't have all that 250 in 2028, but it depends on need.
And to that point, and to the point Councilman made earlier about being able to pay more than you want, you could always, if you wanted to kind of minimize that impact to 300,000, there's nothing stopping you from paying more in 26 or 27 to kind of ramp up, kind of build it into your budget or tax rate already. Right, so that impact, you feel it a little less, and you're just, that is the added benefit of just reducing your debt, right? You're paying it off a little more rapidly. So you could always do it earlier. If you said, hey, I don't like the jump, the 300,000, I want it to be, can we start earlier and step it up? We could absolutely do that. You could always pay down more. and earlier. Yeah.
When you structure the notes, do you look at the underlying assets? So I think you estimated a 20-year note. Is that right?
A useful life, yeah.
Useful life. Is that blended?
100%, and I don't,
Yes.
I'm bringing you, you're gonna defer this from you, but yes. The legal aspect is every purpose has a useful life as designated by New Jersey law. So whenever we do a bond or now, some of your ordinances are real long lived. We did some property acquisitions. Those are like 40 years. Those are very long lived. Trucks, particularly small trucks or vehicles, police vehicles, they're given 5 years. So it is, Paige, I'll let you, but it is a blend of the various purposes.
Yeah, so your 2019 ordinance, it has a 26.51 useful life. A lot of that is really because of that includes the construction of the DPW building. You have, like Bob said, 2 land ordinances, which are at 40 years. Then you do get into where you have equipment and some town hall improvements, and that's about 15 years. And then again, some road improvements, equipment, improvement of various township facilities, that gives you 18 years. It all blends with whatever those projects are based on the local bond law and what it allows for each specific item. And then the new DPW facility ordinance is a 30-year life.
And just
So
to
that really helps.
mention, I'll let you keep going on your question, but 20 years is relatively long life for what we usually see in a general municipal context, because usually it's DPW equipment, it's roads. So, and those, I would say most of the average lives is really usually around 12 years. So
Yeah.
you have
I was going to say, this is very favorable that as well, that you can extend it out 20 years.
Your 2022 bonds, they were 20-year bonds, so.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's favorable from a debt service perspective, but I mean, when I look at that interest number,
You pay more interest, yes.
That's the trade-off. You're absolutely right.
we're getting crushed.
Yep.
So, I understand the,
Yeah. And we don't have to go 20, right? If you said you wanted to go 15, we could go shorter. We could go 10. We could model that out for you, and you're going to see what the impact would be on that, right? So it's just the math of what the numbers are, right? We could run you're permitted to go shorter. You can't go longer.
okay.
That's the rule. So absolutely, if you said, hey, we don't like 20, we want to go 18, or we want to go we want to go 15 or 10, we can model that for you and show you what it would look like.
And like a home mortgage, if you go 30 to 15, do the interest rates go down or is?
Yes. So the way bonds are sold, it's unlike a mortgage where you get a single rate. Municipal bond, each maturity has its own rate. And we do that via competitive sale under state law for new money issues. So we'll put it out to bid, and whoever wins will have a rate on each maturity. So the shorter we go, it's a yield curve. The shorter we are, the lower the cost of borrowing would be. Yes, absolutely.
Your 2019 bonds were 10-year bonds, just as an example. And as Joe said, your 2022 bonds were 20-year bonds. So it varied. I forget actually if in 2019 we went to the full amortization allowed or whether we flipped it.
Josh, would the next step be to get you our approved capital budget once it is?
Yeah, we would want to know. And I would, to Bob's point earlier about timing, I think if you really think there's going to be 25 capital that we want to include, you would wait to do everything at one time. So you have a single issuance that saves on cost of issuance. You don't want to have multiple note deals. Now we have towns and we all have clients that have, for various reasons, an emergency comes up or a project is brought to everyone's attention that they weren't expecting. So it's sort of off cycle and they may have 1 or 2 or 3 notes outstanding in a particular year. We do our best to consolidate those over time, and there's ways to do that. But all things being equal, if you could just do 1 issuance a year, it saves you money. So that's what we would recommend. And as far as the term of that long-term bond, we're not deciding that now. That requires a vote to you. That again, that's a resolution that would get approved beyond the ordinance that's already authorizing the debt. So to do long-term bonds, we would come before you. Bob would draft a resolution with all those detailed terms and outlining here's how we're going to amortize that debt. So that's a decision that can be made later on.
You may have more options at that time than 2. with different.
You certainly,
Schedule.
Yeah, with
I'm
different
sure we will,
scenarios,
yeah.
So, Mr. DiCarlo, what do we see for 2025 at this point? What do we know, or do we know what our demand is for ban issuance?
Well, it's going to depend on, I guess, what council approves for 25 capital. Because so far in 25, we have the $2.8 million and 50,000. And then the most, unless you tell us to do something other than what's proposed, would be 2.4 million, 42,000 for 25 capital proposed. So minimum, so if you said no to every project at a minimum, we need to borrow, what is it,
7.6?
7.6, yeah.
Can you provide to us by ordinance the amount that was approved? And I guess this is the unfunded. Has anything been funded or expended against these ordinances? And for the multi-purpose ordinances, can we have that broken down by the various projects? So we
We
know.
already have that, don't we, Paige?
I have a list, I don't have what each one specifically, cost within the ordinance, but I can tell you what's in various different ordinances if you'd like.
Sure.
So two.
Oh, not right now.
Oh, okay,
no.
we have that, I'm happy to provide it, I mean, that would be long, but we could do it.
Mr. DiCarlo, can we have that provided?
Yeah, so can you just please clarify what you're asking once again?
So there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There are 7 ordinances on the first page that are unfunded. Is the amount the unfunded amount or the approved amount?
So I'm going to jump in just quickly so we get
Thank
it
you.
all right. So I believe, so the ordinance is drafted and it authorizes one project, it authorizes an amount. Doesn't borrow it, it doesn't, I don't think it necessarily, maybe it encumbers it, I'm not sure. And you're exactly right, Councilman, the various purpose ordinances often have 4 or 5 different purposes listed with different amounts for each purpose. How those then are tracked on some internal system for what's obligated or encumbered or contracted, that's one thing, but I want to jump to your question on 2 or 3 things on what you just said, because I don't know the answer to that, and I wouldn't know the answer even if it weren't now. I would need somebody else for that. But it is, on a couple of those ordinances, we actually did fund part, one of them in particular, we put part, it was ready for our 2022 bond. It's complicated. So in our 2022 bond issue, we did sell bonds on part of one of the ordinances because we're ready. But then there was a project, we'll have to go through it, that wasn't ready and we didn't borrow because we weren't ready for it. So there are parts of this that have been in prior bonds, there are parts with grants, there are probably some cancellations in there. I don't, but it's a good, so I don't know that that's simplified.
So, go ahead.
I was just going to say, so potentially these amounts, the ordinance amounts could have been higher.
In each case, they were, I
Right.
believe, except
So
for
this is
maybe
only,
one.
what's
Yeah.
here is only what's unfunded.
Yes.
What's left in the
Yeah.
So I guess my question is, and I think it's like a schedule and maybe in the audit report, there's, what's been approved, what has been funded, of the funded, what has been expended. So the difference should be available cash. And then what's the unfunded? So I would assume that there is some arithmetic that gets us back to the approved from, and that's the goal. So, and then further, these various improvements, the sub-projects, because I know we're canceling one project tonight. I'm assuming it's not in these numbers.
It was reduced.
So it's been reduced. I mean, are there other opportunities that we have? I mean, the administration is putting forth a proposal to cancel a portion of an ordinance. Perhaps the council may wish to cancel other portions of other ordinances. So just understanding that.
Understood. No, that's a great question. And these are, I think all but one of them are some type of net amount. It's not the full, they're down payments under these ordinances too, which is cash out pot. So yeah, no,
Mr.
that's a great.
Beinfeld, in council, we've spent money on everything except for 2504. Almost all the projects in 2410 have been completed. 2315, you know where we are with that. 2308, most of them have been. So there's not much we've been working over the last couple of months in preparation of this, in canceling out those balances that were unneeded. So I believe, in 1917, we have money that was funded by the sale of the school building. Right, Act 2201, I explained to you guys verbally in a council meeting. It was a little hard to understand that night, but it had to do with the funding of 2316, which was for the improvement of the swim club. So we've sent some accounting answers of how we can reduce 2201, hopefully by like $350,000. 2022, there's some capital lines that have a little bit of a balance. 2308, I think everything is done. I mean, I certainly get you those answers, but one way or another, I've already given you that information. If you'd like it consolidated and put together in another document, I guess I can do that, or I will do that. I mean, again, respectfully, we've been through this and I've given council all of this information, maybe more than once now, but I will do it again.
Well, I believe Paige says she has it, right?
The page has the breakdowns of various improvements,
Yeah.
what they are, and I'm in possession of them as well.
Okay.
But since you've done it, Paige, I've reduced those capital lines several times, so I just always need it updated.
So when you indicate we've done the work, how is it paid for?
Mr. Beinfeld, would you mind helping me out with that? Explaining how we
Right.
borrow from ourselves and then we have to repay our coffers?
Yes.
I'd appreciate that. Thank you.
Yes, and I'm not, I don't do the budgets but my understanding generally with communities is there's cash available for things that's in the current account or capital account, and I'm going to defer to Paige. I'm always deferring, but particularly here. So, and if a community can self-fund for a while, sure. I mean, but I don't, and that's probably so if that hasn't borrowed, that probably means there's been some money in a capital account or a current account that I guess gets used temporarily because it's sitting around, but has to be reimbursed or replenished at some point. And so I assume that's what's up. And in fact, as we started earlier, this is an important time for council to do replenishment because there's certain outside limits on it. But I'll have to defer on where the actual cash comes from in the interim.
No, I think it's exactly as you said. It's really your cash on hand that you have available, and you're using it on the capital projects, which I think is also one of the reasons why now is the time, in addition to several things to issue, because I think we're coming up on, for some of these ordinances where some of the expenditures are getting to the point where we may have an issue about reimbursement, but we're still, I think we discussed that we're cutting it close. So it's time to sort of reimburse the town for the money that they've already put out and, get that capital back and also to fund some of these new projects.
So, may I interrupt one?
Yeah.
So if we had cash on hand to pay for these, and we've paid for them, and we're raising capital, we're raising for our current account today, based on a budget that's going to pay for our existing expenses, why do we have to reimburse ourselves?
Well, I'm going to assume that most of the money is coming from your general capital fund based on, from previous bond issuances. And that is just sometimes with the speed, say from the 22 bonds, maybe the speed at which the spending occurred. So there was, cash available to fund additional projects as we moved along. So it's really money that is for another purpose. But because, and again, if I were to look at the 2022 bonds, I forget what's in those.
So you could use a hypothetical. So
Sure.
in 2022, we borrowed to change the color of the lights in this room, and we haven't done it. And we took that money and we used it to paint outside. And now we have to borrow to replenish so we could change these lights?
Right, the best example might be that in 2022, you bonded for the construction of the lovely new firehouse and emergency services facility, right? And so maybe during some of that construction, there was some capital available, but really what happens is you're spending money on all of these projects and the money just doesn't, and the way to fund that is either through budget appropriation, bond anticipation notes, bonds, grants, those type of things. Without that funding, you are short in terms of cash. It's really just a matter of in the interim, because obviously if you're funding a project, you don't want to have to issue a note every several months.
In other
I'm sorry.
words, if you looked in those accounts, there would be IOUs in those accounts,
Basically,
right? So you have IOUs that they have to be replenished
So
in
that,
those accounts.
so when we issue a bond, it's fungible? It could be used for any purpose temporarily until the
I'll
actual?
let Bob jump in on that. 'Cause
Well, that's what
but
it
it's not-
sounds like to
But it's
me.
not, I would say not any purpose.
right.
There's rules, again, state rules and federal tax rules, in this case, more importantly, that allow you to move money around to temporarily fund other projects, to be able to give you flexibility to kind of manage the cash flow, right? Because a certain project may be ready to go forward and you haven't raised the money yet for it, in this case, with these ordinances, whereas the 22 projects, you're like, okay, well, I can wait on that one, and I can use that money instead for something else temporarily, but I know I need to reimburse it because we have to pay for that project. So within those general guidelines, you can move money around to cover different expenses, but at the end of the day, it all has to be reconciled and you have to pay back those IOUs.
Paige and Bob, it also prevented us from prematurely borrowing money, correct?
I was just gonna say, in the good sense, you didn't,
Yep.
if you had money because timing of other projects just slowed or wasn't going, you had the money around, you didn't have to kind of double borrow in the interim and do a note issue temporarily. Slide it as long as it comes back. I think that's the budget.
Yeah, but the payment is these interest-only payments that are killer.
But that has nothing to do with the scenario we're speaking about now.
No, it does, because
No,
you're
we're not.
introducing the ban for the scenario you're talking about.
Was there anything illegal or inappropriate?
Nobody said there was-
what we did?
Mark,
No,
Mark.
I'm asking a question out in the open for the public. Was there anything
But
illegal or inappropriate?
Nobody
that was done?
insinuated that.
Sir, I'm asking the question, was there anything illegal or inappropriate in what we did? And did we save money by not prematurely borrowing?
Well, I don't know, I think, not as good, but I think if money in the capital account can generally be used for capital purposes, so long as it stays in capital purposes, to get internal controls to have what line items are where. And as
Yeah.
Josh says, you probably have an IOU to a particular area. But to Council President's point, really, in a sense, we didn't borrow for these projects 2 or 3 years ago in advance. Otherwise, right today, this year, we'd be having a mandatory pay down. So in a sense, by deferring these notes for 2 or 3 years, you've deferred that mandatory
Delayed the
payback.
interest, that would be the.
We delayed the interest,
Yeah.
we still got paid.
Well, yeah, but you're just paying it in, for fewer years.
Yeah.
So overall, it does reduce your overall interest cost. And to the point about sort of that, the whole concept of sort of using money from this account, borrowing from yourself internally is very common practice for municipalities, for authorities, for most governmental entities. And it's at the state level, all the way down to school districts and
Yeah.
towns, for sure.
Just one last question. What prevents us, or, I'm sure there's an obvious answer, but from just issuing bans on a continuous basis, especially if they require the pay down at some point in time? I mean,
So great question. State law, 10 years is as long as you can go. After 10 years, they have to be paid off in full. You can't continue to roll them past the 10-year anniversary.
you can have a ban, you could have bans for longer than a 10-year period.
Not from
But
the original,
you can't,
not from the original. If you add to it,
okay,
then that new one will start a new date for that portion of it.
understood.
Right.
So a ban can only fund a capital project for 10 years.
Yes.
Is it
Correct.
correct?
Correct. Yep.
In essence, your ban is borrowing under a multiple of ordinances. And you can borrow under the ordinance for the project for 10 years. At that point, you have to retire it or go to permanent bonds.
Right. Yep.
Okay. Any other questions, ladies and gentlemen, on guys?
No.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for joining us on Zoom, Michelle, but
Yeah, thank you.
She's told to keep an eye on me wherever I go.
Eye in the sky.
Big sister is watching you.
Somebody has
She
to.
reports in. Thank you.
Great.
thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Good night.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
I gotta get us.
I think we need a 5-minute break.
Mr. Sears would like to have a 5-minute
You
break.
want to take a 5-minute recess?
Yeah, he wants to take a 5-minute break.
All right, we're gonna take a 5-minute recess.
Why I looked. I
Okay.
just wanted to see where ours was.
Moving on to the agenda, approval of minutes, budget meeting, March 11, 2024. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call?
Councilman Casio.
Yes.
Councilman Sears.
Yes.
Councilman Holman.
Yes.
Councilwoman Velez. Yes. Council President DeSenna.
Yes. Public meeting, public meeting, March 18, 2024. Conference budget meeting, March 18, 2024. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call?
Councilman Casio.
Aye. Yes.
Councilman Sears.
Yes.
Councilman Holman.
Yes.
Yes.
Councilwoman Velez. Yes. Council President DeSenna.
Yes. Report of the administrator.
Thank you, sir. I'll be very quick. Last meeting, we had two questions, one from Council President. DeSenna requested information from Veolia. I had asked Veolia if they maintain records of fire hydrant service maintenance in the township, specifically how often they are checked for operation and flushing, and if so, if we may have a copy. Is there a Veolia policy that sets forth a procedure for how often flushing occurs, once or twice a year? And is there a list of fire hydrants in the township? Responded back by Veolia tests fire hydrants on an annual basis in accordance with BPU regulations. We are unable to share those records externally. Flushing is performed in accordance with AWWA standards. There's no list per se, but there are 290 fire hydrants in Washington Township. Mr. Ullman had requested, Mr. Ullman's request, no, that's wrong too. You had some questions for, Mr. Ullman requested an update and some statistical data regarding our 2025 reassessment. Questions from Mr. Ullman were as follows. Appraisal Systems maintains a list of inspector location assignments on their website. They posted an initial list of residences with a date assigned of 129. Do you know how many of those residences with a 129 date were visited by ASI inspectors, inspected, refused entry, access, left callback notices, etc.? If not visited, why were they bypassed? Successfully inspected by ASI inspectors, refused entry or access. Are these levels in line with ASI's historical experience? Do the levels indicate an issue with engagement by township residents? Is there a need to actively outreach beyond what has been done to date? I did get a response from Ms. Holbig, as well as I had a conversation with her as well, and she responded. A total of 664 residential properties have been visited, which is about 19.7% of all residential properties. The current entry rate is 62.8%, which is about 247 estimates/refusals. The current progress is typical, especially starting during winter months. Please note the stated progress is regardless when the property was issued. It is also important to note that once all initial visits are completed, a follow-up letter will be mailed to all residential no access/estimate/refusal properties indicating we have been unable to gain interior access. The importance of an interior inspection to call ASI for an appointment. And just confirming her, the information she wrote to me in email. Specifically, my office has only received one complaint early on. We were able to accommodate that resident and everything went along smoothly. Other than that, we have not received any complaints directly to the administrator's office. And, Ms. Holbig, our tax assessor, stated that everything seems to be, as it normally is. Thank you. And then just a couple of updates. We are engaging with PSE&G on their Energy Saver program for an energy audit here at Town Hall. We were contacted by the company that I guess is contracted with PSE&G. It's no cost to the township. They recommend it every 5 years. We did have lighting done a few years ago, but they're going to come in and see if there's anything better we can do for an energy efficient level. I also spoke to him on the ESB building, and with the building being 2 years old, they didn't feel there was any room there. And we've also tried other avenues and were unable to get a company to come in based on it being very new and the energy efficiency that was put in there when we built it. Lastly, I did want to just mention that I had emailed council last week about not being ready for the discussion if you were going to discuss the energy. We are ready for that tonight, and I want to tell you that part of that is going to propose a reduction in our telephone lines. And I just want to thank our QPA, Ms. Taraboki, and our admin assistant, Ms. Dolesky. We're working with a new company called Quick Copper and transitioning from Interglobe, and we're looking to save about $1,000 a month. So very proud of them. It goes along with other employees that are involved in the purchasing process that work very hard to save money. So thank you, Council and Council President DeSena. That concludes my update.
Thank you, Mr. DiCarlo. General public comments, motion to open the public comment period.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Seeing no one in the audience, motion to close the public comment period.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Ordinances, adoption, second reading, none. Introduction, first reading. Ordinance number 25-07, an ordinance under Chapter 87 of the Code of the Township of Washington, setting forth the rate of clothing allowance of officers and firefighters in the fire department in said municipality for the year 2025. Motion to introduce and pass ordinance number 25-07 at first reading by title.
So moved.
I'll second. Roll call.
Councilman Casio.
Yes.
Councilman Sears.
Recuse myself from voting.
Councilman Edelman.
Yes.
Councilwoman Velez.
Yes.
Council President DeSena.
Yes. Resolution number 25-190, authorized publication of ordinance number 2507 and schedule a public hearing. Motion.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Councilman Casio.
Yes.
Councilman Sears.
Recuse myself from voting.
Councilman Edelman.
Yes.
Councilwoman Velez.
Yes.
Council President DeSena.
Yes. Individual resolutions. Resolution number 25-191, authorizing emergent appropriation prior to adoption of the 2025 current budget in the amount of $3,939,071.81. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion?
Mark, is this the 26%?
This is going up to 50%. So our first temporary budget was at 26.25%. It seems like it's common. We did it last year and the year before. Just, I don't want to say how long, like it's a criticism, but because the budget's not ready yet, it's common to go to another segment of our temporary budget. So this will bring it up to 50%, except for those amounts on the last page that are indicated with an A.
Okay, let's back up. So we did 26 to begin with, right?
Yep, first temp budget. Oh,
Right.
yeah, excuse me a second. So Mr. Corcoran says he can't hear. I don't know if it's anything on our side.
Oh,
He
sure
might
it
have
is.
to jump in. So yes, sir. So the first temporary budget at the reorg meeting was for 26.25%.
And this is for another 26?
John, are you on yet?
You're-
You can hear us.
Now you were muted. Sorry about that.
Okay,
John, the question is if this is another 26%. I think this brings us up to 50%. So I don't want to say.
Well, in theory it does, but it's higher because of the fact that I had to put in the full amount for the two pension items because they're due April 1st. You have a 30-day grace period, but I can't risk it not being approved because that payment can't be late. So that's why it's slightly higher than the original one because of that.
But so that's only the lines on the last page indicated with an A parenthesis that are above the 50%.
No. The items that have an A are just, they're basically excluded from the calculation. Like debt service and items like that. That's just part of the number. But the reason why it's higher than the original, normally it wouldn't be. It would be slightly lower because normally it would bring it 50%. But because of the two pension items that have to be for the full amount, I believe it's on page 6. Are the two pensions?
Yes.
Yes, the 1,084 and the 249. That's the full year's worth, and I had to do it that way because, like I said, it's due April 1st, and you have to wait for 30. But I did something I do every year because it's due by a certain time, and the budget is, since I've been here, has never been adopted before that payment is due. So that's why I have to do that.
Other than those lines we just indicated, are the remainder of the lines at 50%?
Yes, the only one that might be slightly higher might be the library, because I try to get a certain amount of months in, but that's also statutory. I believe I put 5 months in work for the library fee. But there are 31 ones that are more than 50% from last year.
Does that help, sir?
Okay. When you said 50%, I wasn't talking about the total. I'm talking about this, for this quarter. I assume we're doing quarterly, right? Because we did
It's
20,
supposed to be 50% of your prior year adopted budget. The first one is 26 and a quarter, and then the second one is supposed to bring it 50%.
Bring it
The reason
to-
why it's higher is because of the pension.
okay. The first one was 26%, correct?
Yes.
The second one
Yeah.
is 26, 27, 28%, right? So a little bit above 50% in
No,
total.
I don't think that's correct. Well, I don't want to know, I don't want to answer, I have a different way of answering it than I think you do, John. So
Okay.
technically, it's over 50% because of those lines that John explained.
Okay.
Have to be more.
Yes.
In hopes of being able to answer what I thought you were looking for is a majority of those lines are at 50% mark. So like the first line for administrator, my salary, that's half of the approved amount from 2024. And then every line afterwards until we get down to the ones he specifically,
The two pension payments.
the two pension payments and then the ones at the end.
And the
That's-
library.
That's fine.
And library.
That's what I was
Yes.
looking for. Okay.
Okay. Everybody good?
I'm fine. Yeah.
Any other questions for Mr. Cochran? Or-
Yeah, I do, while he's here, can you calculate for me, before the end of tonight, what it would take to bring down the overall budget, $47 per average household? The average household is 469,000, right? Does that sound 460 something?
465.
465. Can you calculate what it would bring down the overall tax burden on this budget, $47?
I don't know that right now. I can get that for you.
Yeah, I'd like to have that, please. Can you calculate that when you get a chance? Can you calculate that for me and send it to me?
Do you mind if I jump in? He could do that. I just want to jump in because I have an answer.
Okay.
In working with Mr. Baris, when we do our revenue and tax impact, it's roughly $28 to $30 for every $100,000.
Okay.
So 100,000, I would say about $28 for 100,000.
Okay.
So we got to
So
bring
to
it back
get to
200K.
56 would be 200K. To get 47, maybe, 100 and,
Okay.
160 grand.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I have no further questions.
Roll call?
Councilman Gassion.
Yes.
Councilman Sears.
Yes.
Councilman Oman.
Yes.
Councilwoman Velez.
Yes.
Council President DeSenna.
Yes. Resolutions consent agenda. The following items have been determined to have the unanimous consent of council and will be enacted in one motion. Should any item require independent consideration, any council member may have such item removed from the consent agenda. Would anybody like any items removed at this time?
Yes, please.
What number, Mr. Alman?
192, 193, 194, and 195.
2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay. Resolution number 25-196, authorize refund of engineering escrow fees, block 3301, lot 29, in total amount not to exceed $135. Resolution number 25-197, authorize refund of engineering escrow, remaining escrow fees, block 2503, lot 16, in the total amount not to exceed $3,438. Resolution number 25-198, authorize refund of engineering escrow fees, block 4427, lot 13, in the total amount not to exceed $735. Resolution number 25-199, authorize amended dates for council meetings for year 2025. Resolution number 25-200, support authorizing participation in the 2025 Sustainable Jersey PSE&G Energy Efficiency Partnership Program. Motion to
So-
approve consent agenda resolutions?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call?
Councilman Casio.
Yes.
Councilman Sears.
Yes.
Councilman Oman.
Yes.
Councilwoman Velez.
Yes.
Council President DeSenna.
Yes. Resolution number 25-192, authorize cancellation of grant receivables and appropriated reserves. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
Daisy. Ms. Velez.
I think Mike, Mike, want to discuss it?
Mike,
Yeah.
Ms. Velez, you have questions also?
No.
One
Oh,
night?
I thought you seconded.
No, you did, she did say, we're
We'll do discussion.
going to discuss it.
Go ahead, Ms. Chalmers.
Discussion.
The question I have is, I'm trying to understand what the entries are for these, for these
If I may,
corrections,
Councilman?
for these cancellations.
Okay, is it okay if I answer now?
Go ahead, Mr. Cochran.
Okay, let's take the first one, the CDBG for the parking stalls for 2019. That out of the four is the only one that is not in fund balance because we have a receivable for that on the books, which is why by canceling it, we'll be removing that from the books. The other three do not have a grant receivable balance, which is why those three are going to fund balance.
So when you say the fund balance, so
Yes.
drive sober and pull over, we have a grant, an appropriated reserve balance, like, what does that mean? 1,485.
Basically, those three items have a grant account that is set up that have these specific balances that we will no longer be paying out. So that's why it's set up that way.
So are we taking revenue here?
No, basically, we're canceling them. Basically, it's the opposite of when you set it up in terms of the appropriate reserve balance. So it's really giving the money back into the reserve balance, but then it's also will be going into fund balance because we're canceling them out. Which is why it is different than the other item, because that is actually a grant receivable that we have as of the end of last year. So by doing this, we'll be able to take that off of that schedule.
But if we have a receivable that we're not going to receive, or we're canceling, doesn't that result in an expense to us?
No, it doesn't. It's really just a potential. It's really just removing the receivable. It's just a journal entry. You do a certain journal entry when these things first are created, and then depending on whether these items get finalized, you come to a point where you can cancel some of these items out, whether it's grants, trust accounts, anything like that.
That was
So
money,
basically,
that was
Sorry?
money that we never had in hand. That's why it's under the grants receivable. So if I remember, I think we received the grant for, say, 70,000. We only could prove expenses of 59,000. So for the accounting aspect of getting off the books, we have to cancel that. So we will zero out our balance in the grant, and then it'll reduce our grant receivable by 11,000 because we're never going to get that money. But that 11,000 was also money we never had in hand. The appropriated reserve balance is money that already went through the budget cycle, wasn't spent by the end of the budget cycle, and was put into a grant line. That's why that was money we actually had. Therefore, that's why it's going into fund balance. If that helps explain it in a little different of a way.
and it will also allow you to cancel those four items out as far as grants. So if you were to run a grant report, once these get approved, I will cancel them out to them, so you won't see these items before on a grant report. That's the other side of it.
Okay, so in the case of the parking stalls, in the example, I don't know if it's a true example, but 70,000, we expended 60 or 59,000. Do we still have a grant receivable for that 59? Do you know, in this particular example, did we get this money?
The answer would be no, because we received that grant reimbursement. So that's why we're canceling what the difference was. So when we were awarded, say, $70,000, John, you weren't here in 2019 either, correct?
No, I wasn't. No.
I would imagine that a grant line
was set up for 70,000.
Okay.
And we also, I don't know if it's a credit or debit, these accounting terms, to the grants receivable. So once we received the distribution of 59 for the expenses we could approve, we lowered our grant receivable by 59. If we don't cancel out this 11, it'll always show as a grant receivable. And that's essentially unfair to us because we'll never get that money because the project's concluded. So even though they award that, we're not going to always get that unless that's what we spent. Hopefully that makes sense. You know,
Yes. Okay.
some of this, most of this is just accounting. A lot of it was us, like, you know, I promised to go through these accounts and organize them and
Yep.
clear them up. And it just takes a long time because you're trying to figure out what this project was. Is it done? Is it all paid for? Who to figure out, who to talk to at the county. And we were able to finally do that and feel comfortable that we're canceling stuff we're not going to need.
Is it possible for just this example here, and I'm looking at 25-192, the actual debits and credits, is it, and the accounts that they're hitting, are they asset account, liability account, memo account? Just so I can look at it, because I think although I understand your explanation, Mr. DiCarlo, I think it would sort of solidify it, just looking at debits and credits.
So you really just want the account numbers that they get credited to?
Yeah, so I'm assuming that there are ledger tickets for $3,338. I'm assuming there's a debit and a credit, and that debit and credit hit a balance sheet account, and I don't know if it's a memo account or another balance sheet account.
Well, if I may, these entries were done, I'm not making any excuses, but these entries were done before I was here. And I don't know if I could, you're only allowed a certain amount of years to go back and to look at these. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, I don't know if there was in particular, like, an original journal license for 3,338, because I think the amounts were probably higher, and this ends up being balanced. In terms of the last one for Woodfield Road, that really is just a rounding, because we had on the books 178, 113, and last year we got money for 178, 112, which cut the balance. It's really a round. It left the balance of the so that's, all three of those will be going into fund balance.
And I'll work with you tomorrow or during the week to see how we can accommodate Mr. Allman.
Okay.
Thank you.
You go with that explanation? Okay, motion to discuss 25-193.
No, you have to do a roll call now. Did you
Yeah,
discussion?
I
I
will
need
do
to
that,
do a roll
okay.
call to approve.
So I need a
Yes.
roll call, for this one?
Yes. please.
Okay, roll call to approve 25-192.
Yes.
So move.
Second.
You did your motion, you did your second, now you do a roll call. So it's going to be Councilman Casio,
Yes.
Councilman Sears.
Yes.
Councilman Ullman.
That's not the first time you've done it.
I know, I'm sorry, Councilman Ullman.
It's quite all right, Sue.
Thank you.
I know my haircut is like throwing you off. Yes.
Councilwoman Velez,
Yes.
Council President Aceta. Sorry about that.
I need a motion to discuss 25-193.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
Have we just decided not to move forward with this project?
Yeah, I'm not too, unfortunately, the mayor's not here. He was more familiar with what this project was, but we discussed it, and it was determined that it is not needed. I'm sorry, I can't give you more information on what it was originally for back in 2019, but the mayor did confirm with me that it's not needed. That's why we're canceling it. And then this kind of goes back to our discussion when we were talking during the financing thing of still clearing up. So when I said, like, we spent all the money in 2308, this 21,000 change was what was left in the soft costs for all those ordinances, 23, that we no longer need anymore. So again, that's, our commitment again to cleaning this up, especially how important it is for
when we go to borrow money. So it's just canceling balances we didn't need. And then in this circumstance for 1917, it was the total amount. That an account line was set up for that. We never spent money on that. It must have been one of the approved projects in ordinance 19.
So, Mr. Cassio, was this an item that's, weren't we gonna do something with the school and we needed to put fiber in and it had to
Yeah,
do
it
with
had to
the-
do with, I believe it had to do with communications with the school, with all the schools, and link them to the two borough halls, Westwood and Washington Township Borough Hall, but I don't recall the exact nature of it. And I don't know if we got money somewhere else for it, if the project was ever completed, so. This isn't money in hand, is it, Mark?
Well, this is a portion of 1917 that was unfunded.
It was unfunded.
Right, so it reduced the numbers in the presentation this evening.
Part of the camera system.
I gave them this number anticipating it to be approved tonight, so their presentation was based on
Okay.
this lowered amount of $250,000. I can look at the ordinance real quick on the website. See if it
Yeah,
explains it a little better.
I vaguely remember it with being something with security between the police stations, the borough halls, and the two, the schools, but I do not recall it, so you want to,
1917 is a big one, $4.2 million.
you want to table that, or if you want?
I had the same question. Are you talking about the communication?
Yeah.
Why we never did it?
So the ordinance says improvement, oh, you want to read it?
No.
You make me, improvement of various properties and facilities in and by the township, including by the installation of a fiber optic network, together with all structures, equipment, work and materials necessary therefore, or incidental thereto, all is shown on and in accordance with the plans and specifications therefore on file, or to be filed in the office of the township clerk and hereby approved. That's what it says in there. And again, it was for $250, but the account was set up for $229 because I'm sure a soft cost
Right.
was taken out of that.
I mean,
We table this one until we get the reason why we didn't do this, because it was pushed as we did like an emergency thing on this when I was on the council last time, and it was an important thing for the municipality to save lots of money. And
I thought it was communication with the schools, but also putting fiber in so we could put cameras.
the account was active shooter stuff.
Yeah,
That's
the
what it was.
shooters, it was more.
Exactly
I
what it was.
thought it was cameras at the parks and stuff.
Correct, yeah.
It was a number of facilities,
Yeah.
but it's
But it was
mainly
supposed to connect all
school.
the backbones to everybody, like, including IHA was supposed to connect to us.
Yeah, everyone, yeah.
Remember that, remember?
Want to just table the whole thing and leave the 21 in there? So it's cleaner.
Yeah, I would just table
Okay.
the whole thing.
Okay,
So we'll table 193.
okay.
Thank you.
Resolution number 25-194, authorized cancellation of miscellaneous reserves, other trust fund. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
So by canceling the trust fund, I'm assuming this comes into revenue.
Yes, he doesn't, we didn't put the other column, but in the last paragraph, it says balance sheet be canceled to the current fund balance.
Okay.
So that'll go into surplus.
Okay with that?
Yep.
Roll call?
Councilman Casio,
Yes.
Councilman Sears.
Yes.
Councilman Ullman,
Yes.
Councilwoman Velez. Yes. Council President DeSenza.
Yes. Resolution number 25-195, authorized cancellation of grant receivables and unappropriated reserves. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
Is there something particular about this that it wasn't included in 192, or it's just another line?
If I may, Council President Senate?
Go ahead, Mr.
These monies represent actually an overpayment we received back in '23 for Sherry Field. So because of that, at this point, originally we put that into unappropriated reserve balance when it first happened. But now what I'm doing is I'm reversing it and putting it into fund balance because that's really where it was. There was no overpayment for grant monies that we were we're expecting.
You good? Roll call?
Councilman Casio.
Mike, I just want to have.
Oh,
so,
sorry,
yeah,
go ahead.
No problem.
Go ahead.
Again, this accounting stuff gets me very confused. So this is monies we had on hand? Where we were,
Basically, we're waiting for, I believe it was a little under 12,000 is what we were waiting for. And we got a payment for, I believe it was around 15,000, maybe just over 15,000. So basically, when it first came in, I reduced the grant receivable by the bigger amount, and these extra monies, for the time being, I put it into the unappropriated reserve balance. But at this time, I can reverse that and really it belongs in fund balance.
Sounds like that's where it was supposed to go. Correct, John? Is that where it was supposed to go initially?
Yes, initially,
Yeah.
that's where it had to go initially.
okay.
But at this point, we can reverse it out of there and put it into fund balance.
Okay, thank you.
Roll call?
Councilman Casio.
Yes.
Councilman Sears.
Yes.
Councilman Ullman.
Yes.
Councilwoman Velez.
Yes.
Council President DeSanto.
Yes. Motion to adjourn conference agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
On the conference agenda, the ordinances are listed for us. We're not going to discuss them tonight, but they're there for review. I know Mr. DiCarlo and Mrs. Bailey have been working diligently on them and getting us to revisions. Once the budget's over, we'll review them. We just wanted to keep them on there as a placeholder. Okay. Good evening, Ms. Bailey.
Good evening, Council President.
Enjoy the rest of your night.
Thank you very much.
Can I go?
Are there changes to these or are these the latest drafts?
Those are the latest drafts.
The latest drafts are in our pocket.
Latest drafts. Okay.
Ms. Bailey, the question was asked by Ms. Nolan. What we have in our packet is the latest draft of those three ordinances, 307, 223, and 580, correct?
That's correct.
That's just want to
Are
confirm.
they redlined or are they just,
They're not, but if you prefer that, I could certainly do that and provide that to Sue. Easier to read. I could do that.
I'll figure it out.
We can figure it out. They're not-
I'll put them next to each other.
Or I can tell you the next time exactly where to go. I know them. Whatever you prefer.
I don't know if I want to know where you want me to go.
Well, if you change your mind, let us know.
All right.
All right,
You want the red line.
we're going to go into budget discussion. I guess we'll start on page 21.
21?
Yeah, 21. There's 22. Yeah, we did 21.
Yeah, something on your. Okay, we're going. Yeah, the zoning office dues, meetings and conferences,
What page is that?
21.
21, yeah. All right, top of page 21. We have,
We're gonna do salary, sir, or are you just gonna jump off with the tabled zoning office dues and meetings?
yeah, we're going to do the zoning office dues, meetings, and conferences. We tabled that.
Okay. I had given council an explanation, a week or two ago. Basically, the $600 increase is the increase in cost for the live streaming of the zoning board meetings. They were $250, and it was raised to $300. So that's where the extra $600 comes from.
So I did some, some backlog on YouTube and stuff. Nobody watches these meetings when they're on. They're not even on YouTube. Like, you can only watch them live, and then they don't go anywhere. So why are we videotaping this if we're not sending them live? And the same thing happens to the planning board. They don't go on YouTube or anything. I'm
The
sorry.
council meetings?
No, this is for zoning board. Zoning board and planning board meetings, we record,
Yes.
and you could live stream them when they're on, And then I guess they're in our cloud, but nobody has access to that cloud other than, the zoning board secretary or the planning board secretary.
So Council President, the way I understood it, because I looked into it too, is we have the ability to do that. It's just the individual boards, I guess, elected not to, which can be changed by them. So we have, it's all set up to be just like it is for the council meetings. It's just right now, the planning and zoning are live streamed. They're not then put on YouTube.
Correct, they're like I said, they're live stream, but
But
that's the
it sounds like,
extent. And there's only like one person on them, it's the same person every time, it seems like.
yeah, I don't know how many watched. I just know that apparently it was the individual boards that made that decision, but I'm not sure why. I didn't
So
talk to
is
the
there a
chairman.
reason we need to videotape to do this?
I think, again, I don't want to speak out of turn, but when I first came, it was the first budget year, so it would be 23 is when we started doing it for the council, if I remember correctly. And then that's when it was
No, the
added.
council's always been,
Well, it was added for the planning and the zoning.
Yeah.
yeah.
When
So
they,
that's only since 23. Sorry to interrupt you, sir.
Okay,
when they have these meetings, is there also a phone in like we have?
no. No, what do you mean a phone in like we have?
Like
Yeah, Zoom.
someone
I think they're
says something.
hybrid.
They're hybrid.
Okay, so you can,
I think they can.
members of the public can zoom in.
Yes.
But they can't.
No,
They can't do questions and answers, right? They can't answer questions?
Not for the planning board. They adopted rules that align with the council.
Council, same thing with zoning board.
So you
So
can,
it's not hybrid, no, it isn't
Okay.
hybrid, so,
Because I think that's how you're advertising. It's hybrid.
but they're not, because
well, they're hybrid because they are,
the members can
The
get on-
members, but
the
not the
members can
public.
get on hybrid, but not public members.
they're streamed. Well, as you said, you just can't interact. If
Interact,
you want
okay.
to,
You have to come to the meeting.
yes, if you want to present,
I think that's the difference between having them, the council.
Well, it's just like our meeting.
Yeah, well, that's,
It's the same exact thing, but we just post ours on YouTube, ours get posted so people can watch them, and people do watch ours.
if you really want to come and find out what's going on with zoning and planning, you should come to the meeting. I mean, basically all this stuff was for the COVID situation, right? So as far as I'm concerned, COVID's over, and that could be a savings to the town. You're talking a few hundred dollars,
It's $3,600.
for.
Well, you have to at least fund the first couple months because he did it,
You understand. We understand. It's already done.
So cut out till June, do it till June.
I would like to,
Take out
reduce that.
$1,800?
Was it 36? So half, let's do it till June. You want to
1,800?
do it for both boards? So
Yes.
that's my motion for both boards, just
All right.
cut it in half.
So the
And
motion by Mr. Cassio, do I have a second for minusing 1,800 out of 250?
What's that?
That'll pay for 6 meetings.
250.
185, 250.
185, 250.
Bottom of 21, page 21.
Okay.
Second one.
Oh,
501,
yes, got it,
yeah,
got it,
501,
got it.
21,
Oh, that's
185.
right, right here, we tabled.
Yeah.
So we have a motion for Mr. Cassio to cut $1,800. Anybody want to second
And
it?
this is just the meetings, the
Yeah,
recording.
everything will stay the same.
I'll second it,
Wait, hold on. Where are we?
right here.
Right here,
185, 250.
21.
Page
21,
21.
we said.
Second thing from the bottom.
Second from the bottom.
Am I in the wrong place?
Yeah, you're on the
21.
page.
No, it says 21.
No, you're on the
You're on the breakdown page.
You're on the
breakdown.
breakdown.
You want to be on the budget itself.
The budget
Wait.
page.
Sorry. Oh, here. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Sorry.
Roll call?
21.
So wait, so you want to reduce it to 2,500, right? That's the-
1,800, yes, we're taking 1,800 out. Yep.
So that comes to 2,500?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Councilman Cassio.
Yes.
Councilman Sears.
Yeah.
Blah, blah, blah,
See,
blah.
okay.
No, I'm cold.
And I'm
Councilman Sears.
excited.
Councilman Sears, yes?
Yes.
Councilman Omen.
no.
Councilwoman Velez.
Yes.
And Council President DeSena.
Yes.
Sir, before you move on, I just want to make sure I understand it. The account line is 2,500 and we're approving
6 meetings till
including
June.
6 meetings at $300.
Yes.
Okay. 1,800. Okay.
Yeah, because it would have been 3,600 for 12 meetings,
Thank you.
so we're cutting 6 meetings out.
And then did you want to go back to planning?
Yes, we're gonna go back to planning. I just don't know what page that is on temporarily.
It's right above.
What page?
Is it page 20?
It's got to be 19.
20,
More
planning
legal advertising,
department.
facility
It's
training.
both. It's really on 20.
It's,
but-
yeah, it's the bottom of 19 and the top of 20. It's cut in
Oh,
half.
yeah, okay.
So
So we cut it by 200, so we're gonna do the same thing here.
I'll make the proposal.
Well, their
Wait, this is
recording,
different here. What?
their recordings are $100 a piece.
Oh,
And
Nice, so 24.
it was
Let's,
cut from 26 to 24.
yep, so we're gonna cut another $600 out of that. Well, they had 24 meetings recorded at 100, right? So we say they've done 12 of them already, right?
Right.
So we're gonna cut $1,200 for a total of $1,400 and leave $1,200 in this line item.
Wait a second.
Say that again?
Wait a minute.
We're gonna cut
You're saying there's two a
$1,400.
month, right? Two-
Yeah, so we're gonna leave 6 of them in, we're gonna leave 6
$1,200.
months, 12. So we gotta take 12 more at $1,200. We already took 200 out.
So it's 1,000.
1,400. So it's 1,200 to be remaining in this line item.
And then you're leaving me 200 for the organization, right? The NJPO.
No, it's,
So you're going to leave me $1,400 is what you're saying?
we're gonna take out $1,400 and leave you $1,200.
But I need
He
200
needs 200 for the other.
Yeah, but you've got
200 for-
$1,200. Oh,
I
you
know.
need, oh,
He
yeah.
needs
Yeah,
200
because-
more for
yeah.
that.
Gotcha, all right,
So,
so,
so 1,000.
so 1,000, we have to take out 1,000.
So I'll
So
make a motion to take 1,000 out of
12,
that
yeah,
one.
1,200 total, because we took 200 out of it already.
Yes. So motion to reduce it to
1,200,
1,200.
$1,400.
14.
Okay, I'm sorry.
We gotta
We're
go-
Anyone?
We're on 50121180250. Top of the page.
You know why? Because I didn't have a.
Yeah, it's no header,
I'm
yeah.
sorry. Okay, now it makes sense.
So we're gonna cut 12 meetings at $100 out for a total of $1,200. We already took $200 out of this line item.
Right.
So it'll remain $1,400 in this line item. Mr. Cassio has made a motion. Do I have a second?
I'm
Second.
sorry, why, how is it 1,400?
Because they need-
2,400.
Because
They
they
go
need
200 for the
the
meeting,
dues.
NJPO,
All
whatever
right,
that
so you're
is.
gonna forget about the first one, you're just gonna make it 1,200.
Yep.
Gotcha, okay, so, I'm sorry. Who motioned?
Mr. Cassio, who seconded it? Mr. Sears?
Okay, Councilman Cassio,
Yes.
Councilman Sears.
Yes.
Councilman Ullman,
No.
Councilwoman Velez.
Yes.
Council President DeSena.
Yes.
Okay, and that's for service, including June. So
Yes, okay,
cancel
we kept them
July.
all to June.
To June plus the 200.
Thank you.
Would you be able to ask,
The person, Lenny Sapino, Fred Getz.
Secretary, Ms.
Oh,
Kayla,
Kalish, yeah.
can you ask her if she needs those for her function?
So,
I understand we cut them, and we can add them back if needed, but does she require them to perform her role?
Okay.
All right, we're gonna go, bless you.
Thank you.
We're gonna go to page 33.
Let me just, can I just ask Mike, your question, what would she needed for her role? In that, aren't they, there's a secretary there? Is that what you're just talking about?
Yes.
But doesn't she get the recordings just like Sue does?
She very well may.
Okay.
I'm just asking the question, is that true, Sue?
Yeah, we do the same thing.
She has a recording. She also, I believe, takes minutes in the moment or notes in the moment.
Right.
I don't know if she would need them as a backup. So I'm just asking, does she need them to perform her role?
Understood.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
All right, so on the bottom of page 32, OEM CERT program.
There's no funding there, sir.
Yeah, it continues down at $7,050.
What?
Yeah, that's the way the control line goes. Why is that like that? Oh, no, hold on.
That's
That's
the
the
total.
total. That's the whole total.
That's the
Okay.
whole
All right, so
Well, you
first
really
aid
threw me for a
organization
loop.
contribution, 40,000 requested, 40,000 recommended.
Well. What are we doing with that, since we're talking about doing the
I know.
county, right?
Well, you do have a shared service agreement that you did approve with the county. And speaking with the mayor, we do respectfully request the 40,000. If things don't work out, I mean, I know you could readdress it with 26's budget, but I know with the mayor speaking with the ambulance squad, they were hoping to be funded at the 40,000 this year.
But where's the agreement money coming from then?
The county's free. This shared service agreement with the county is free.
Okay.
So, I mean, I don't understand how if we're
Medicaid.
reducing,
Hold on, gentlemen.
Okay, sure.
if we're reducing the coverage and using another organization, why we would fund it at 100%.
Well, I don't know if we're not reducing the coverage by the volunteers. The volunteers are still going to man it, for lack of a better term, the way they always have. They're just going to be supplemented by the county. But if you remember, the county's not a guarantee. They'll be positioning their ambulance and personnel there to respond to. But there's no dedication, there's no absolute dedication of service to the township. The hope and desire is there because that's where they'll be, but they may be out on another call.
So Mark, but I guess you may not know, when we give them the $40,000, right, for the contribution, do you know how that's allocated, or that's not our purview? Because
I don't know how it's allocated. I don't know the answer if it's something I can officially ask for. But I've never seen how it's, we give it, quarterly, $10,000 each.
I understand.
Could it be tabled for an explanation on how
You want to bring
Dr.
it in?
Cassio
You want to,
asked about it?
that's what your motion is, table it.
Yeah, I'll motion table, because again, it's just, it's a very difficult,
But hold on,
Issue.
Mr. Allman has,
No, I mean, so we were presented with a number of options. We went, so we could not sign any shared service and ask the ambulance service to, cover all calls that they're assigned through their rotation with the tribe, borough, however it works. And there was a challenge with meeting those calls. I mean, that's why we had these discussions. So, there's a performance issue here.
correct?
I believe the mayor, or I believe the ambulance corps should be providing details on their performance. I mean, I don't know if we should be paying or contributing or making a donation, however we want to call it, at 100% of prior funding if that's not the level that we're getting. I mean, the reason we had to enter into an agreement is because there were
We're
issues.
providing service, right?
I mean, did you mean performance issue or more of a staffing issue?
It's a performance issue. It's
It's a coverage issue.
Yeah.
It's not a performance
The ability
issue.
to answer the bell.
Yeah, no, I figured that's what you meant. I just, I think it's a better term to
Coverage is
describe
issue,
saying
yeah.
staffing or coverage. And I remember when Mr. Greco and Mr. Aarons were in here, they had spoken about some new membership that they had. Now, certainly not enough to cover it 24/7, or you're right, we wouldn't have come to you with options. But because they have a desire to keep it a volunteer ambulance squad and not, diminish until it's, slowly, I can't think of the word I'm thinking of, deteriorated to that point of not having a volunteer squad. So, that's why we were hoping for the 40,000 funding to see us through this year and, see how that shared service agreement, because again, we might have to come back to you next year and say, the county didn't work out, we're going to strongly recommend, the next step up for the paid shared service.
So my question is, do we have metric available, an agreed metric on the level of service that's going to be provided by Washington Township Volunteer Ambulance Corps.
Or were we told that they could give us how many calls they had last year and how many they responded to and how many went to mutual aid when they were here? Didn't we ask for that information and we were told it would be supplied at a later date?
Yes.
Or am I misinterpreting what was said?
I mean, and I would have thought that, we would have that monthly or quarterly, so we
Well, that's what
can
we asked for.
determine if, when the call comes in and it's dispatched out, is it answered? Because at the end of the day, that's what, we're looking for is the coverage.
So the motion is to continue or table, gentlemen and ladies? I don't know if we'll have any more information. Is that something, Mark?
If
You can ask the mayor tomorrow if we can get that information, because I know
you're all
it was
willing
brought
to
up.
table it, I certainly will see what I can get. I mean, if it
I'd like to know, like,
indicating what the funds are spent on helps.
well, not even that. I think, like, I'd like to know, like, in 2024, what were the stats? And for the first quarter of 2025, maybe not the first quarter, maybe January and February, because we're only, like, what were the stats for January and February? Like, how many times were they called? How many times did they respond? How many times did we go to mutual aid? How many times did the county answer, right? Because that's all got to be documented, right? Because every time the call is made, right, it gets logged in at the police desk, right?
It must, yeah, I'll try and get statistics. And this question is not antagonistic, but how do you correlate what you'll give them in a budget to how many calls they responded?
I just want to know because of the request that was brought up here on the dais that we may have to go to paid ambulance corps, excuse me.
Right.
That's what prompted us. And my whole objective is, any minute that we delay a call for that rig leaving and having to go to mutual aid and not biting the bullet and just going to paid right now is somebody's life at risk, right? And we're not talking, the volunteer ambulance corps has worked for years, but they've had their difficulties in the last few years. So I understand they're trying, but I don't want somebody to be, a minute short because we just don't have the volunteers and we should go to paid and we need to make that decision. So it's going to be a difficult decision on this day.
But we're not there yet, so.
But that's
we have
not,
time.
but we've discussed this now for 3 or 4 months on this dais, that there's an issue there.
We were ready to spend $75K.
Yeah, we were ready to pay
join
Hillsdale.
Hillsdale.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's an issue there because we were ready to
But I
give.
thought, I wasn't here for the beginning portion of their presentation, but I thought the last time they were here, if I remember correctly, they said that they were still okay for now. They were still, able to do their job and provide the service.
Again, Ms. Velez, I'm not the one that brought it to our attention. It was brought by the administration that there's
So
an
why
issue
don't we
here.
table this? and
Yeah,
we
because
get
there's an
more
issue here,
information?
and I just don't, if the issue is legitimate, and we need to throw money at this to save a minute, 2 minutes for a call, or possibly even more minutes.
It's too important.
It's too important. And I value what they set up here. I value their volunteerism and all the effort and all the training they do. But if we have an issue, this is something we can't kick down the road. We need to, nip it in the bud now.
You have to understand how it works.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
have to understand how it works before we make any decisions.
So
I'll make a motion to table it until next meeting, please, if you wouldn't mind.
And if you want, if you want to see their financials, we should ask. And if they say no, then we determine what we do from there.
Again,
I don't
Mr.
agree with
DeCarlo, I
that.
guess you.
I will
don't
try and
agree
get
with
the financials as well as statistical data, but I just want to make sure that, the procedures in place that there's no delay in time,
Correct.
If someone doesn't answer.
I'm
they have a
not, the
certain amount of time.
financials are not important to, like, Mr. Ullman has his own,
No,
but mine is, I'd like to know that, like, the response, like, how many did we respond to? How many do we have to go to mutual aid? How many did the county actually grab in the last 2 months since they've been here? And what that is, because that's what we,
No, I totally get it. I think, I understand the financials as being important because that's what you're going to fund. I just didn't want anybody to think that, because they might have a staffing issue that it delays anything. The police, I think they were here, it's 5 minutes and then it goes out a second call and then they go to mutual aid. So, and then,
Again,
that's it, but I'll get the information.
thank you. All right, moving on down.
Do you want to do a roll call on the table?
Oh, I'm sorry, table.
You need a
Motion.
second also.
Mr. Sears seconded it. Roll call?
Councilman Casio?
Yes.
Councilman Sears?
Yes.
Councilman Omen?
Yes.
Councilwoman Velez?
Yes.
Council President DeSena?
Yes. Ambulance JIP premium, 6,186 requested, 6,186 recommended. Is that a bill, Mr.?
That's a bill, sir, yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Roll. Any discussion? We're
That
good?
really went up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Are they?
Are-
At any point during the course of a 7-by-24 week, are they not on duty? Are they not providing coverage
I believe,
officially?
I believe the answer to that is yes.
Yes, they are not, or yes, they're 24/7?
Their coverage is 24/7, but I don't believe they can staff 24/7.
So I guess my question is if they're not officially staffing or officially covering Monday to Friday, 6 to 6, let's say, I mean, do our premiums go down because they're not 24/7?
I don't know the definite answer to that, but I would imagine not, because they could at any time, right? Like, if they're not, someone could be available, I just know they can't. They don't always have someone in the building 24/7.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Fire prevention, miscellaneous expenses, 4,500 requested, 4,500 recommended.
Do a negative 300 on that?
You want to reduce it by 300?
Yes.
Right. If I may, I spoke to the fire official the other day, and he's accounting for every bit of the 4,500. And none of that, he's not anticipating spending any of that on the giveaways. He feels he has enough for that. So it's like his Enforces system and his code books, and he spent almost 4,500 last year too. He just spent just under 40. Thank you for listening.
Mr. Sears has made a motion for reducing it to $300. Do I have a second?
I'll second
Roll call?
Councilman Casio?
it. Yes.
Councilman Sears?
Yes.
Councilman Omen?
Yes.
Councilwoman Velez?
No.
Council President DeSena?
Yes. Flipping the pages. I'm glad to say a lot of them are full. We're on page 38.
I don't think you have anything.
Well, I'm starting at 30. Oh, DPW is next week, so.
43 if you want to do recycling.
Yeah, hold on, 43. Recycling, street sweeping, how we start that?
Yep.
Yeah, so we have DPW street sweeping, 30,000 requested, 30,000 recommended. This is for 4 sweepings. This is a contractual amount with Paramus, Mr. Carl?
Yeah, we have shared service agreements with, I think, Paramus, Emerson, the county. So we have several shared service agreements. So, there's a contracted price, and then there's a cost to dispose of what's picked up.
Okay. Any discussion?
Just a question, Mark. Are we looking to use one vendor more than the other, or just who's available?
The county tends to be a less expensive, but it also is when we have someone available. So if I remember correctly, the county will give us the machine and we have to provide the operator, but it also depends, how busy they are. So, we try to use it. The county, we didn't get until almost the halfway point last year.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was, a training issue, and then it was an availability issue. So to answer your question, the county would be the most cost efficient for us,
Right.
but it's not always the most practical or available at the time.
Okay.
So that's what we try to do first.
And we have members trained. How many members do we have trained on this?
I don't know. I can find out, but I don't know.
Everybody okay with that line?
Yep.
All right. Oh,
Can I-
sorry.
So if each sweep is $5K plus the dumping, which looks like it runs about $1,000 plus or minus. So that's 6,000. 6 times 4 is 24.
We spent a little over 26, and
What's not specific in the shared service agreement is the dumping fee. So the cost to use it is set, but if the dumping goes up, I'll need money to account for it. And if, again, at different times of the year, the end of the year and the beginning of the year tend to be, I think, where there's more. So 24 would definitely, I think, be too low. I would hope you wouldn't lower it at all. So I have that buffer there, but.
Would you like to make a motion, Mr. Ullman?
28.
Mr. Ullman would like to reduce it by
Reduce by
2,000. Anybody second that?
Mark, one other question.
Yes,
Is it on the number of pounds that we dump or the number of times we dump with the
I
dumping?
think it's tons.
Yeah,
Tons.
It's
on
what
weight.
it sweeps up, yeah.
Okay.
That can vary.
Pick up your bottles, enforce your litter rule. That would help reduce the amount.
Anybody second it?
I'll second.
Roll call for 2,000 reduction.
Councilman Casio,
Yes.
Councilman Sears,
No.
Councilman Oman,
Yes.
Councilwoman Velez,
No.
Council President DeSena.
Yes. Recycling salary and wages, recycling coordinator.
We didn't ask for an increase from last year. It's split between 2 employees for doing all the recycling coordinating. There's a ton of work with that.
Okay. Any discussion? We good?
No, all right.
Recycling paper and plastic curb fees, 165,000 requested, 165,000 recommended. The gated contract for 2025 is 161,200. Atlantic Coastal is approximately 24,000. Need 185 offset by recycling tonnage grant. So we're at 165. Everybody okay with that?
Yes.
We good?
Yes.
Recycling leaf and brush disposal fees, 25,000 requested, 25,000 recommended. Need 100,000 offset by 75,000 in clean communities grant. Everybody okay with that?
Yes.
Mike, can I just go back and ask Mr. DiCarlo a question about the recycling?
Yes.
Did we ever check if we can do single stream and if that will reduce cost? Did we ever ask them?
If we can do what, I'm sorry?
Single stream,
I know we're
put
under
your
bid.
plastic and paper
We're
together.
under bid right now for the dual stream.
So we have to wait for the new.
Yeah, I think it's another 2 years, or it might be another 3 years. We might be in the second.
But if we
year
could
of
save
three.
gain of money by going to single stream, would they be willing to renegotiate?
I can look into it.
Yeah, would you please?
I mean, I forget, I think we did, I feel like I did.
I remember
answer,
we
but I
did
don't
something
remember.
with it. I don't recall what it was, but it seems like a lot of towns are doing single stream because it's cost effective for pretty much everyone because they only have less truck.
Less trucks,
They only
less
have to come
pickups.
down once, so it saves them man time and diesel. So again, just a
Okay.
question. Thank you.
The 75,000, the
Yeah.
grant,
We're in the next line, right? 220, Mr. Altman?
220, yes. So the 100 is the expected expense. We wouldn't want to show this gross.
Well, if I show it gross, then that's how much we're raising in taxes, right? So I have grant lines with appropriated funds, meaning they already went through the budget cycle at some point. They're old. And so some of that 75,000 is accounted for in the Clean Communities grant further on down in the budget. And then some of it I have in grant lines. So it's not in as a revenue. And if I put 100,000 in there, then that's what we're raising in taxation would be the $100,000. And I don't need that. I just need 25 to supplement the other. Now, of course, next year, if I don't have that, I'm going to come looking at you for whatever next year is going to cost. That's the, unfortunate trade-off of utilizing these lines. But it's money that's been sitting there and wasn't used.
There's not another mechanism to bring the grants into sort of revenue? only because it
Well, I still wouldn't be, I guess, no, I
it
wouldn't.
gives you, so, for instance, when we talked about canceling some of the capital ordinances that were funded, and we took that money and we said, we're gonna
Pay down future debt.
pay down future debt, we're gonna offset, so we won't have to raise 100,000 for this year's debt service, we only have to raise 98,000 because we canceled 2,000. Isn't that?
Well, we didn't, well, sort of, but see, the grants most likely already were listed as a revenue when they were put through the budget system. Let's say if these were 2018, 2019, it already went through the revenue and budget cycle. So now they're in the grant line. So I think from an accounting perspective, it wouldn't be correct to put them back in the revenue side. Is that, from what, just understanding that, I see how you operate in a funny way. You like to know how much things cost from year to year. So,
I mean,
and I understand.
Call me crazy.
No.
Call me crazy.
No, I'm just saying, I know what you're looking for, and I understand why you want it. But I guess that's what will, the account line, I can always provide you. How much did you spend with environmental renewal? Well, this is how much we spent. It's just another, I guess, cog in the wheel when it comes to looking how much we need.
But this money's guaranteed, right? Mark, the 75
We
grand?
have it.
We have it.
We have
All right. So,
Okay.
um,
All right, flipping the page,
All right, so you stay at 25,000?
yes.
Yep.
That's DPW, recycling green team at the top of page 44.
Yes, I would like to
12,000
reduce
hold on.
that.
Well, let me read it, 12,000
Oh,
requested,
okay.
12,000 recommended. Yes, Mr. Sears.
I'd like to reduce that by 1,500.
Can you make it 2,000 and make it an even 10,000?
got big things going on, Tom?
Yeah, I got a
So,
donation for a lot of
All right.
trees, so I may need,
So Mr. Sears has made a motion for reducing the line 250 for the green team to 10,500 with a $1,500 reduction. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion, roll call?
Councilman Casio,
Yes.
Councilman Sears?
yes.
Councilman Oman,
Yes.
Councilwoman Velez?
Yes.
Council President DeSena?
Yes. On the bottom of page 45, Community Service Act condos, 36,000 requested, 36,000 recommended. That's a financial cost, right, for them? Because they pay
Yes.
taxes and don't receive services, so that's the give back, right?
Yeah, where are we again?
At the bottom of page 45.
Yes, and just in case the question comes up, we actually spent $34,532 because the bill came in after I printed this
Okay.
on February 11th.
Was there, Mark, was it not a bill received for 2022? Were we missing something there? I just don't understand why it varies. Can you?
So-
explain that to me?
This, obviously, or if you don't know, it's for the streetlights and the hydrants in the condo associations. The agreement we have with some of the condo associations to give them, I don't know if the proper word is a rebate,
Right.
for the recycling they pick up. So, it's dependent on whether they come looking for it.
Gotcha.
So they may have not come looking for it while we had that money in the reserve. Because I know I know one of them, and I won't say who, took a couple of years to catch up to us, but we had to pay it. So, and I think that might have been in 23. So if, 21 would be even a better
Yeah.
question. I'm sorry, I just don't know.
Okay.
All right.
So you're leaving it?
We'll leave it alone, yep. Flipping to page 46, health. Meeting fees, 501-27330-170, 625 requested, 620.
1110,
What's that?
He's skipping it because it's a
It's a-
health registrar,
It's a salary, so we're skipping
that's a
that.
salary? Oh.
Yeah, so I went to
the
meeting fees.
It's
Meeting,
339.
625 requested, 625 recommended. It's the same as last year. It's in line, no increase. Everybody okay with it?
Yep.
5 meetings at 125. just so you know.
Health office supplies on the top of page 47, 250 requested, 250 recommended.
We're good.
Good.
Good. Meetings, dues and conferences, 400 requested, 400 recommended.
So who goes to this?
Me, it's for my registrar certification to
Okay.
do license, marriage license.
All right.
Right.
Health consulting, non-legal, 48,924 requested, 48,924 recommended. This is our agreement with Northwest
Yes.
Bergen Community.
Yep, that's an exact number.
Health,
That's a
child health care.
Yes.
And keep
That's
them.
out of it. Health, public health nursing, 900 requested, 900 recommended, expected to resume services in 2025 with nurse attending senior meetings quarterly.
Can we minus 500 on that?
Mr. DeCarlo?
Yeah, I was going to say Miss Wachowski. So Sue and I have been working on it to try and get this service back for the seniors. And I think, not to throw it back on Sue, but I think, Sue, you got some confirmation that they plan on coming back to these meetings.
Yeah.
When, in June, hopefully, so we can have.
No, I think it's
they start
quarterly.
now. I think I start now.
Yeah.
March,
And
April, because.
We've had seniors come in, Sue, right?
Yeah.
Going, when are they taking my blood pressure?
Yeah.
When are they?
And it was an outfit from Hackensack, and we tried reaching out, nobody responded, so then we went the back door, went back to Northwest Bergen Regional Health Commission saying, can you help us? And they came back saying, yes, what they're gonna do is they're gonna supply someone to do the checks with the seniors and more at the library. And they will review the contract, I believe he said at the end of the year is what I told you, right?
Yep.
They will review it to see, but right now they will not charge us anything extra. So right now, we're not going to need that fund, but kind of like going back onto what Mr. DeCarlo said earlier, if something falls apart and they want more money, then if we can go back to Hackensack Hospital or something, so up to you what you want to do with this. Could be a moving target next year, or it could be rolled into Northwest
So
I mean,
right now they're doing it part of.
as part of their contract for this year.
Okay.
So we can make this zero for this year.
You can, as long as you remember the next year, you
But
might.
I
need to put
mean,
it
not
back
for
in.
nothing, but for $48,000, I mean, why isn't it included?
That's why we're taking it out.
Listen to-
I'll make a motion
Because
to
we couldn't
reduce
get them to come
it.
in after, once COVID hit, we couldn't get the service.
I'll
back
make a
in.
motion to reduce it by $900. Have a second?
To zero?
Zero?
Yeah, because it's included this year in the 48,924.
That's this year.
That's this year.
Oh, wait,
No.
Sue, what did you say?
It's included in their cost this year.
Yeah, they said that was included. They were going to review the contract at the end of the year to see if there was going to be additional fees.
Oh, okay.
So we'll take it out.
But like I said, we might need it back.
Somebody second my motion
Oh, wait. When you say they're gonna review their fees for the following year.
for the next contract, next 2026.
I'll second that.
All right,
I
roll
mean, they're
call.
gonna increase it next year.
That's why I said you might just be rolling it right into theirs
Well,
anyway.
that's next year's problem.
I mean, that's a big jump from 43. That's,
For 48, but look, we went from 30s to 40s. I mean,
Oh, it's a big jump.
Yeah.
So you could
they
do
could throw in
48,000
a
instead of
nurse
48,924
for
then.
a couple
It's
times.
definitely going to jump. Didn't we do a presentation on this, Sue? The jumps?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right,
I think-
so-
Okay, so motion to zero it out, minus 900 has been me, seconded by Dr. Casio. Roll call.
Councilman Casio.
yes.
Councilman Sears.
Yes.
Councilman Ullman.
Yes.
Councilwoman Velez.
Yes,
Council President DeSantis.
Yes. Health Advisory Board, 3,000 requested, 3,000 recommended. I believe no other advisory board gets a budget.
Well, I mean, this is a new line, a new request this year. Maybe Councilwoman Velez might be able to help me out, but there are several things that the Health Advisory Board wanted to do. And under the miscellaneous tab, that's one of the reasons why I provided the revenue that the Health Department brings in for town. So it is revenue creating, and the 3,000 is, to be speakers. There is anticipated speaker, hopefully for the end of March or beginning of April. So we are looking for some funding for this.
so at the last meeting, it was discussed, I mean, I've been on the board just for one meeting so far. We have another one this week, and it was discussed by all the members how we wanted to do more and bring in speakers like Mr. DeCarlo mentioned, and get more involved, but in order to,
Speakers where?
to speak, like, I forget what we had said, I don't have my notes, I'm sorry. To speak in regards to like health. I know we talked about drugs I believe that's what was one of them in regards to drug usage and prevention, a lot of prevention speakers. So they do have some projects that they want to get, up and coming and off the ground. But as anything, the first takes a little bit of cash to get it rolling before we can see that really be put to use. So it was, they were hoping that we would fund the board so that they can get it going this year. They had some of them, again, I'm brand new, but they had some really great ideas.
We table this and can you bring back what they have in this one?
Yeah,
I know
we have a meeting
you only
on-
been to one, so
One.
that's what I'm saying.
So on Wednesday, we'll meet. If you have specific questions.
I would just like to know all the things they want to do with this and what, like how the speakers, where they speak and, how this contest and.
There's the Black Poster Project or contest. They've been doing it across different communities. So it has shown some good progress. But I will
You just
get
have more
more.
information on that, I don't know.
Yeah,
what that
sure.
is.
I will.
All right. I know you had asked for 9:15 and it's 9:20, so motion to adjourn.
One question, can we
Yes.
just do the animal
sure.
control officer? That's the only
Oh,
one.
the other, on the next page, yeah,
Right.
control. Animal control officer, 13,500 requested, 13,500 recommended. This is a contract plus deceased animal pickup at $60 each. I'm okay with it. Anybody else? Everybody else okay with it?
Yes.
Do you know how much the agreement is?
Mark, is it, hold on, I have it
Are
with
we
me.
accounting for like,
I think we
No,
accounted for
plus-
Can
10.
we minus 200 out of that?
No,
No?
I was short this past year
Um,
because of the dead animals I had to pick up. I hate to say
well,
that.
there's less around, so.
Well, I mean, all this construction, we're getting rid of their habitat, so
They're gonna be moving.
they're running into the road.
Okay.
Their contract is not,
It's a control, so if
yeah, I
We're
know.
gonna
I'm
need a
looking at mine.
transfer.
Hold on.
we go over.
It was 12,300. You know, I left another piece.
Bring a shovel.
Sorry. No, I don't.
$13,000.
Yeah, but I'm saying, yeah, but that was with the extra animals in there, so that's what I'm saying. I think it was 12,400. For some reason,
I got
it's sticking in my
some
head.
like that.
We didn't account for that many.
No, their contract amount. That's before the dead animal pickup. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I think we only
Always
accounted
picking
for
squirrels or
Yeah.
pickups, so it would only been $600.
lieutenant.
Let me just look to see if I have.
I thought I had that paperwork.
What's 12,450 then if you had 10 animals? So it's 12,450 plus 600, it's
I'm pretty sure I
13,050.
have it in my thing. Hold on a second.
Should have been easy. But I was short last year, that's why we had to increase it.
Well, it doesn't show you short.
yeah, you were short.
We did some,
We had, I went through,
can't tell Mr. Ullman what I did.
Believe me,
we went through,
You'll find out one way or the other, Mark. Just tell them.
You won't find out till next year, Don.
All right.
I'm
Okay with
looking,
it.
I'm looking.
they pulled 250 out of something. They were
Yeah.
short 250.
yeah. We actually,
Oh, How do you see, how do you know that? What do you
Because I
think?
know everything.
I know, well, show me and I can tell you where I took it.
Because you only paid 875 of the 1025
exactly.
out of this account.
So,
So 250 came from somewhere else.
It definitely did.
if I'm an ordinance.
But it was probably appropriate and lawful. That's my new term, appropriate and lawful. It's in Tycom?
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you look at my budget sheet, you should have something in there. I had the bill in my hand this afternoon too. Damn it. Sorry.
At this point, I'm okay with it.
I'm okay with it.
Okay, make a vote. Yes.
There you go.
Okay,
Yes,
Yes.
yes, yes.
Get them tired, read them.
Motion to adjourn?
So move.
I'm going
We'll
out
get
and
it to
stay
the
with all my
wall.
school, right? So I look out the well. There's this cat on a
I
third-story roof.
was saying 12-4.
Can you imagine if we combined our.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Sorry, I'm sorry.
Thank you,
Who motioned it?
I can't.
I motioned,
Everyone said aye.
Aye.
everyone says aye.
Oh,
Looking like-
We could be like that.
Good night.